Hello and welcome to episode 137 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, after looking into the materials required to craft Forge of the Gods, we decide to enter UMV a little early to make some Shirobon to help with the switch to wireless EU. We also craft a portal to the Deep Dark to source Firestone and Tartarite along with other materials, and the QFT upgrades have been postponed due to reprioritization. Continuing along the journey to Mark V Fusion, there are still some things I need, still some things that are missing, some things that I really need to wait quite a long time for, but that's just how it is, I guess. It is just a matter of fixing some broken processing lines that are probably power failed or something, but I'm working on that with the UEV wireless energy hatches, and also a bit more space mining. Overall this should be done not soon, but with little effort. So while that's happening, maybe I should look at what I need for Project Godforge and then decide whether or not it would be better for me to quickly enter UMV specifically to get Shirobon so I can make the multi-amp wireless hatches, because those would be very, very nice to have. And also a space elevator upgrade and a Mark II space elevator pump. Those would also be very nice. Also perfect overclocks on the PCB factory would be nice. There's a lot of nice stuff that gets unlocked. But okay, let's take a look at Project Godforge. It's a lot of stuff. And honestly, I don't even know how to start looking at this because there's so much stuff that goes into it. I'm already seeing some new materials. There's Melion and Creon. Also 6-phased copper. You know what, let me quickly go through every single recipe and make a note of everything that's new. And then I'll decide whether or not to enter UMV right now. Alright, I've taken a look and I almost definitely need to enter UMV first, because this is probably the biggest project so far. Oh man, okay, this is making Mark V Compact Fusion look like a joke. So, this is not an exhaustive list of the things I need, this is just the things that are new. There's also a billion things that I already have, and they are going to take a very long time to craft. So let's quickly go over all of the new things that go into the Godforge. First off, I need superconductor rare earth composite. This is pretty easy to make. It's a QFT recipe with monazite. It's the monazite line replacement, which is pretty nice, but it needs a tier 2 QFT. I'll come back to that because this is solved by another item that I need. I also need 6-phased copper. This is made in a DTPF. It's a pretty chill recipe, except for the fact that it needs molten Melion, which I will come back to. Cryptic Singularity needs molten Creon. Spaghetic Singularity needs more molten Melion. I need gravitons, which I can make in the compact cyclotron. There's also a celestial tungsten plasma recipe that's 50% gravitons, so this is chill. And it will also give me a Higgs boson eventually, which I need for the dark matter recipe. Apparently I can also go mine dark matter, but I don't really want to do that, even though it's probably better for me to do that. I need cosmic fabric manipulators, and these are used in the tier 2 QFT. And to make these, I need hyperstable self-healing adhesive, which is made in a tier 1 QFT with the glues, soldering alloys, that kind of QFT recipe. So this is going to use bismuth and carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and I'm going to get this self-healing adhesive. So I have to do this to get the superconductor rare earth composite, so that's another problem solved along the way. Besides that, I need thorium plasma, Mark V Fusion. I need plutonium plasma, Mark V Fusion again, specifically plutonium-241. I need molten Creon and Melion, both of which are kind of done in this vac freezer recipe. So the Creon plasma comes from the TPM. This is pretty chill, but it needs Mark V Fusion first. And I also need Melion ingots. And Melion ingots are a very painful blast, very power hungry, 14,000 Kelvin, which is fine, I can get to that. And Melion dust. And Melion dust is this insane mixer recipe at UMV. That said, the items that go into this are pretty chill. The Firestone and the Tritanium could end up being kind of problematic, but I have a solution in mind for these. And that solution is the Deep Dark. So I need to make a portal to the Deep Dark, which is, yet again, more Thaumcraft research, but hopefully this will be the end of it for a good long while. And I also need a raw Deep Dark portal block. This is pretty easy to make though. Nothing crazy here, except I need molten cheese, which is kind of funny. This will also, along the way, solve any Tartarite issues I have, which I am now once again starting to have. So this is kind of insane, but things will be made much easier if I have access to multi-amp wireless hatches. And slowly but surely I can put every single thing on my base on the wireless network. I don't know if there's any situation where I don't want that realistically, but right now I think I do. And that means I get to enter UMV. So let's do it. UMV machine hull needs molten PBI, it needs a quantium wire, and a machine casing made of spacetime. Alright, UMV. I don't want to go too deep into UMV just yet. Basically, all I really want at this point is the UXV circuits, so quantum circuits. These are pretty easy to make. I can do everything except for the Shirobon, which I can now make as well. Shirobon is made in a DTPF with this recipe. It needs molten metastable oganesson, which is painful. No catalyst, which is nice, but also not nice because I don't get any 50% discount here. So that finishes off these two quests. Another thing I want is UMV laser hatches, so I can make pico circuits in the advanced assembly line, which means I need UMV energy hatches, and these are also pretty easy to make. I'm gonna need the pico circuits, I'm gonna need UMV parts, and UMV parts are surprisingly chill. It's, for the most part, just DTPF materials, like hypogen, spacetime, dimensionally shifted superfluid. Besides that, everything else is, yeah, not an issue. Even the emitters and sensors, they just use some ABS alloys, which is fine, no problem at all. The superconductors specifically need spacetime, but that's to be expected, I guess. And the UMV superconductor ingots, these are slightly painful, but it's not the end of the world. I need molten dragon blood, but now that I've made 8 Draconic Evolution fusion crafters, that's fine. I'm noticing that hypogen and spacetime get used a lot. Every single part seems to need either hypogen or spacetime, mostly spacetime. Another sort of medium-term goal would be the UMV component assembly line to save on 25% of the spacetime. And in fact, once I have the quantum circuits, I could also make UMV field gens pretty painlessly. But I am slightly getting ahead of myself. For now, I'm just going to go for the UXV circuits and the UMV energy hatch, and then I'm going to go back to UIV and continue working on this stuff. Now, I want to quickly make the UMV energy hatch, but I'm missing a bit of tartarite for the UIV parts for the scan. I'm going to quickly whip up a little deep dark portal. This shouldn't be too bad. And I'm going to set up some void miners in there. I am being massively throttled by my plasma generation now, which is fine, I guess, because that is what I'm working on rectifying. But I need some way to kill the time, because I'm kind of just standing around and waiting. And I know that eventually I'm going to have to defeat the Chaos Guardian, so I may as well do some more Thaumcraft research to get the Infinity armor, because it's all made of like a billion different things. So I'm just going to do all this research and hate myself for it and then love myself for it later on. And then finally I can eat a pure tier and stop laying eggs, and hopefully I will be truly completely done with Thaumcraft. God, I hope, but I already know that some random piece of shit is going to need more Thaumcraft later on. Oh look, warp. So I am starting to run low on some aspects for doing research. Yes, I still do research by hand. Yes, it sucks. Now, I don't know what I have left to scan. I feel like I've scanned everything, but I definitely haven't. So, I'm going to craft myself a cell microscope. This needs 300 of each aspect, or of these 3 aspects, but that's actually not so hard to achieve, because I have the Thaumium Boss Silverwood Scepter, which brings it down to 58% average V cost, and my chest and legs are not even discounting objects. So I can replace these, easily bring this down to 50% cost, and then I will be able to do this no problem. In fact, I might even be able to do it right now. So let me get this stuff and then craft this thing up. Easily done. Surprisingly, there is no quest about this, but what this thing allows me to do is scan the contents of an entire cell at once. Now, I don't think I can do it while the cells are in the drives. So instead, what I believe I need to do is to take out a cell, throw it on the ground, and then scan it. And that is a ton of stuff that has now just been scanned. I have a lot of drives to scan. This is going to suck. But I'm going to have so many aspects to do research with after this. All done. I still need to wait for these UHV wireless energy hatches to finish so that I can set up void miners. Besides that, I have a raw deep dark portal block, and now I can make the actual deep dark portal block as soon as I find a source for Superbia and Terminus. These are quite annoying aspects to source, but this is a one-time craft, so it is what it is. Alright, I thought for a second this was gonna blow up. Anyway, Portal to the Deep Dark is done. Where do I put this? Right here. Well, in we go. So, in the Deep Dark, we can get lots and lots of stuff. Big place. So when it's too dark, you take damage down here. That's fine. Let me dig out a space, and I'm going to set up the void miners, and let's see what kind of ore I can get down here. I know that there's some nice stuff like tritanium and tartarite, but I don't know what else. Let's see. Things are already starting to build up quite quickly. These drives are going to be full in like 2 seconds. Oh my god. Okay, there's a ton of different stuff here, and I would imagine quite a few of these are useless. Like, I don't need iron or beryllium or... Okay, there's a lot. Okay, I'm gonna go through these ores. Actually, I'm gonna make some more drives first. Alright, I'm gonna let this fill up completely, and then I'll take stock of what kinds of ores I have here, and I'm pretty much only going to whitelist the ones that are hard to get in the space elevator, or impossible to get in the space elevator. I'll give this a few more minutes, and then, yeah. Right now, I just have an isolated subnet. Not even a subnet, it's just a different network. There's absolutely no relation to the overworld right now, which is not the best, but I'm just a little too lazy to set up a quantum link right now. But it will happen eventually. Okay, I have looked at every single ore in here, and it is mostly garbage, but it's nice to see that it's an even distribution of stuff, for the most part. But there are some significant ores in here. First of all, there's americium, which I can get from meteors and space mining and fusion, but I think this is going to be a bit faster. There's deep dark iron. I don't know if this is used for anything, but I see that the molten form is used for making temporal harmonizer catalyst, which I'm sure I will need in the future, so I've made note of that. There's firestone ore, which I cannot get from space mining, so this is kind of required. There's rubidium ore, same thing. Only source of rubidium. Well, not the only source, but it's the best source of rubidium that I could think of. And rubidium is needed for Melion dust, so this is extremely relevant. Same thing with firestone. There's tartarite. Tartarite is awesome. And there's tritanium, which means I no longer need tritanium fusion. I can just mine it, which is nice. So for now, I'm just going to keep these 6 ores, and everything else I don't really care about. So I'm just going to filter these miners using the input bus. So I need to basically get one of each of these ores and put it inside of an input bus. And I think if I use a linked input bus, I'll only need 1 ore. And then it's like kind of being read by all of the void miners. That's kind of nice. It's kind of laborious to add new ores every single time I add a new miner. Instead, I can just add a linked input bus, and that's that. So let me try that. Let's see. Okay, all the ores are in for all of them. Yeah, okay. Seems to be working just fine. And I'm going to have to refactor a couple of recipes here and there. Actually, while we're on the topic of recipes, I just want to quickly show that I am currently crafting the Mark V Compact Fusion Controller. But I am still missing the coils, so I'm not even close to done, unfortunately. However, some recipes that I've replaced. First of all, the beamline. All the recipes now use the highest tier input, which is the photonically enhanced wafers. So the batch sizes here are really big. Besides that, another recipe that I want to update is the one for raw exposed optical chips. So far, I have used this recipe with grade 8 water, making 12 for each photonically enhanced wafer. But there is an implosion compression recipe that I can do instead that gives me 16 at the cost of a fluxed electrum singularity. But this is really easy to make. It's just 16 blocks of fluxed electrum. It's not even that much. This is a UMV recipe, which means I need at least a UIV hatch. So actually, I could have done this quite a while ago, but I'm making the change now. And finally, for the coils. The coils. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will finish Mark V Compact Fusion and start working towards the Forge of the Gods. Along the way, many energy hatches will be swapped for wireless versions, and we will invest in some minor UMV progression. There will be a live stream for the construction of the structure that will contain the Forge of the Gods if it hasn't happened already. See you next time.